It's January 2024 and one of the oldest competitions in the world, the Football Association Challenge Cup, also known as the FA Cup for short, was on this weekend, and there were plenty of highs for some teams on this podcast and a few lows too. We're going to discuss all of that and what exciting things are going to happen in this month because some teams have got a lot of work to do. Mikel, take notes. This is One Kick from Glory, and I'm joined as always by Craig and Matthew.
What's up?
And we're going to start off talking about the magic of the FA Cup, because every season when it comes around, there's always that look and that chase for the upset, especially when you get to the third round, which team's going to prevail, which team's going to make it through. But before we get into that, I want to ask you both, what is one of your favourite highlights from the FA Cup of past days? I'll start with you, Craig. What's some of your FA Cup highlights?
Has to be 98 FA Cup final. I was around 7-8 at the time. When Arsenal beat Newcastle 2-0. And when Nicholas Anelka scored the first goal, or was it the second goal? I think it was Overmars scored the first goal, if I remember correctly. And then Anelka just ran through and hit it low, just hit it shot, and it went straight up through Shay Given. It was a great game because Arsenal, was my first season watching Arsenal properly as a fan. Even though I knew about them from years back, I was quite young at the time. So watching them do the double that season was a very good feeling. Winning out at the old Wembley was a good feeling.
And for you, Matthew, what's one of your highlights?
So this is a bit more of a personal one. It was the closest thing I've ever got to go to an FA Cup final in the stadium. Obviously, I wasn't. But they had a big screen at Stamford Bridge at the new Wembley. So this is 2006-2007 season. Chelsea versus Man United. So this was the first FA Cup final at the new Wembley. They opened up one of the stands at Stamford Bridge. Me and my mates, a few of the Chelsea fans, were all watching the game, and they're doing a chant about Jose's dog. For those of you who know will know. I mean, the game itself wasn't all that, but just that one moment, the connection with Lampard and Drogba, and he lifts it over Van der Sar at the dead of stoppage time. I mean, considering it was not the best game, but as a closest thing to like a FA Cup final I've ever been to, will always have special memories for me, man. It was a good day because you had like two titans. You had the champions of England against like their closest rivals at the time. There was literally nothing separating us in that season, and it was tit for tat. We were always in their way, like just trying to make that title run just a little more difficult for them. And just seeing him lift over the man for the big occasion, Mr. Big Game, Mr. Big Man at the occasion rises again. Great day, man. Great day.
No, we always love to record those good moments. I mean, I can always think of many. Unfortunately, some of the ones I can think of are more like on losing occasions. I think of Michael Owen's famous run in 2001.
In final.
When he showed Adams and Kieran a clean pair of heels and then left Seaman grasping at thin air. Also remember David Seaman's famous save against Sheffield United, that save from Paul Pescaligo's header. And of course, the one goal that I want to mention, because it also involves Liverpool again, Steven Gerrard against West Ham, semi-final, Millennium Stadium, whacked it. No, it was actually the final.
Yeah.
When he made it equalise in injury time. And just the reaction of David James is just like bro, are you serious? We've defended so well and you just rob us of a win. So I think there's definitely been always some magical moments. And of course, this weekend we had quite a lot of good results and some interesting games as well, and some wonder strikes. I want to highlight Patrick Bamford's incredible goal for Leeds. Oof. I know Craig, you were saying beforehand, like how with strikes like that, with that level of skill and technique, he should be able to get a move back up into the Premier League. Maybe he wants to stay at Leeds and get them back there. But yeah, it was a wonder strike. Any goals this weekend that you guys really think of and really thought was like a great one to highlight?
There was Pedro Porro as well. I mean, dead game. Dead game, and they needed something. And sometimes it's just a case of where you just throw caution into the wind and just produce an absolute knuckleball. I mean, that the keeper was nowhere. Who were they playing again? Was it Everton or Fulham or
Burnley?
Burnley, and the keeper was getting nowhere near it, and just required that little bit of relief for just not to have a replay. That was a great goal. There was one scored by. There was two Brentford. Mope's goal and the guy who scored for Wolves, two crackers as well. There was a few. There are a few special ones. Obviously, the one that Maidstone, the penalty that sent out Stevenage as well, penalty as well. That's a significant goal. So Sterling's little death free kick. Forgot our free kick taker, even though he was still rubbish in the game, but we'll talk more about that later. He was still rubbish. That's his own good moment. Yeah, there were a few. It's a good weekend for like watching just good like old. Kind of reminded me of Premier League of old. Kind of reminded me of Premier League of old, where like they just draw out the. I mean, it's no surprise where it's FA Cup weekend. You're seeing all these great goals, and Matty Taylor's manager of Shrewsbury Town at the same time.
That is. That's a great callback.
Great. But I was happy to see him. It sucked that he lost because his team peppered Wrexham so badly. How they didn't. On another day they'll score. Half of those goals. But just seeing the connection between him and him, thinking like, old Premier League is back for just a moment. Just a moment it was back, and I loved it, man. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah. For you, Craig, what stands out for you this weekend?
Newcastle Sunderland, that rivalry. They hate each other. He's at scoring 2 goals. So to put his name in Newcastle folklore. So whenever he leaves Newcastle, he'll be a legend.
You
score against Sunderland, you're an instant legend. Ask Alan Shearer, scored twice as well. Ask any player who scored against Sunderland for Newcastle, you're a legend if you score against them. They hate each other. Like Arsenal, Tottenham, Chelsea, Tottenham, or Man United, Man City. They don't like each other.
Fierce, man.
And I was gonna say as well, something else I was gonna say. Come back to me.
All right. So yeah, there definitely was a lot of highlights this weekend, and of course, since you mentioned him, Matthew, we're going to jump into the game at Chelsea. We will cover the spectacle at the Emirates, and we have lots of thoughts about that. But let's talk about your victory, 4-0 win at home against Preston North End. I used to work for a Preston fan, so I know that's a disappointing result for you, Mark, but it's okay. You know, lessons will be learned, and you guys will keep on churning away, and hopefully you have a good end to the season. But 4-0 win. Goals spread across the team. Brozier, Thiago Silva, of course you mentioned Sterling, and of Enzo getting on the score sheet. How do you feel about that game and the performances?
I mean, at this stage, you're more or less worried about the results, just getting the results out of the way. You got a big gap between now and the FA Cup final anyway. So up until about, say, round 6, you want to try to see some performances, but when you can afford to against lower league opposition, they're not flying at the moment, so it's a good confidence boost to try and get a really good result on our backs, and that's exactly what we did. Don't get me wrong, it had been worried in the first half because it was just awful, absolutely dreadful. Just at one point, I mean, luckily enough, they didn't really give me any real problems, but with this Chelsea team, that could, if they get bored of me, like, I want to have some fun. I want to start messing around a little bit. That's how Sanchez gifted you the 2 goals in your game. We got bored. So it's like these players need stimulation.
Sure.
So, yeah. But, yeah, second half, remind ourselves we play football. Brozier gets a good header. The crosses were good, oddly. The crosses were actually good for a Chelsea team for the first time in ever this season. The crosses were actually half decent because 2 goals came from it. Good goal by Brozier, good goal by typical header by Silva, lovely little death-free kick from Sterling. Still didn't help out any of his game, and he shouldn't be starting all the time. And then Enzo gets another scrappy goal. He should be getting better goals, but still, look, at this point, like better performance in the second half. But we got the most important thing is the results. And whoever we get next, depending on who we get next, unless it's like a team like you say, should it be Man United tonight, or a Liverpool, or a City, or like stronger Premier League opposition, then we'll step it up. Because I've said before, I think our season is going to be defined by the silverware we bring in for this young squad. Taking home an FA Cup or a Carabao Cup will mean the world to this young group of players, because they've never played together and they've never taken silverware together. So, as a confidence booster, plus we've got the game tomorrow against Middlesbrough. These games are going to be... I'm not saying we should just sack the Premier League off because you just don't know what happens in the Premier League, but let's put in a real good show in the Cups, because that's one thing we didn't do last season. We're already knocked out by this stage as well.
I'm saying you should sack the league off because it's too big of a gap.
Man, 2 wins on the bounce, though. 2 wins on the bounce.
But you still end up in 10th. Anyway, but just thinking about like the prospects of bringing home silverware. We know with Arsenal, with Arteta, that FA Cup win in the first season was so important. It built up the extra capital, which I think he's still... it's helped a lot with the transitions the following few seasons he had, and even when we finished 5th, and then obviously last year when we finished 2nd. I guess for you, Craig, when you look at Chelsea so far, we've talked a lot about with the money they've spent as well, what they need to do this year. But do you think the FA Cup as well as the Carabao Cup, those are two big opportunities that they have to make more of and effectively need to go as far as possible, or maybe even get that first trophy for Pochettino?
100%, because I would say that this is a new Chelsea era now. All the players who won the Champions League at Chelsea, I think only one player's left now, isn't
Yeah,
it?
they got
Two. Thiago Silva. Three. Thiago Silva, Chilwell, and Reece James. So it's a new era at Chelsea now. All the experienced players that had one that trophy are all gone. So if they win a trophy under the Bowley era, like how Abramovich won his first trophy in his second season in the Abramovich era, if they do it under Bowley in the second season, they have to win something this season.
It's a big ask.
They just have confidence, self-belief, and plan for the next season. Because this team doesn't win a trophy this season, it'd be a travesty of what they've spent on money they've spent and the confidence on the players. And you've got a good team. You've got a decent team. Nkuku's fit now, the Sterling.
Not anymore.
You got injured again.
Hip.
I know.
I know the feeling.
You've got people like Broja who's hardly played games this season, but he's getting minutes now because Jackson's on African Cup of Nations duty. So you would hope he can kick on from that game and get a couple goals in his break. You got players like Mudryk who needs to do a bit more. I know he's playing okay, but he needs to score more goals and get assists. You got players like your best player this season is Cole Palmer. He's done very well.
That's true.
He just needs to kick on. I do feel if he continues the way he's continuing, I would have him for a shot for England squad in the summer. 100%. He's done well this season. Enzo Fernandez scored on Saturday.
He scored, gets another one.
I feel like he needs to do more as well because the amount of money you paid for him, he needs to give more. He needs to give more. He's been in the league for a year now, so no excuses now. I can't say it's a year now. It's actually a year to when he came last year in the January transfer window. Caicedo still needs to do more as well in my liking. I thought like you paid over 100 million for him. You need to see more of the outlet of the money you paid for him. Lavia, I don't know if Lavia was a panic buy because he's a good player, but
Injuries.
Where is he going to fit in the Chelsea team? Where is he going to fit in? Because you got Caicedo, you got Fernandez, you got who's the other guy? Gallagher. And Gallagher's video is another player that's done well this season.
Might shift him now.
And you might sell him, and that would be the biggest regret Chelsea made in a long time to get rid of one of your better academy players coming out the academy. I thought that he's done well, taking a captaincy role very well as well, leading by example, and it would be a shame if Chelsea get rid of him. I'm not a fan, but as a neutral watching it in, I would say that it would be a regret Chelsea get rid of him.
Academy prospect, just out of the wing. But no, I get that. So.
I guess that's one of the tough decisions you have to make, because if Pochettino wants to bring in more players and wants to do something in January, and he has talked about how he's probably looking to dip into the market, then something's going to have to give, because in as much as because you haven't really had any issues with financial fair play with your current window or your current windows of splashing, you know, that they mentioned the whole historical stuff with Roman, which might come into play at some point in the season. But you guys have to be wise as to how you do it, because they clamped down on your 11-year contract amortization plan thing, or 8-year contract thing you were doing. So you can't do that anymore. You can't spread your payments over 8 years. You can still give out 8-year contracts, but you can spread them over 5. So that trick won't work. So you're going to have to look into maybe letting players go to make it make sense. So I guess on that note then, I know it will be a big loss if Conor Gallagher was to be sold on. If the club did make that decision, who do you think they would look to bring in midfield as his replacement?
It's weird. As in midfield, I think it's an underperforming midfield, so it's gonna be someone who is a sure bet to bring in, who's gonna just kind of like tidy it up a little bit, because there's so many gaps. It depends on who plays where. You know, do you play Gallagher in the 10 or with Enzo and Mudryk? I mean, it's so much. That seems to be the most confusing area, because that's where we lost most of our players over time. You know, we lost Havertz, we lost Jorginho, we lost Loftus-Cheek, we lost Kovacic. That's already a whole entire midfield already. So whoever we bring in, it almost doesn't really matter, because it's always going coming into an underperforming midfield. But as far as letting players go, they're always looking at Thiago Silva. This will be his last year. I know I say it all the time, but this will be his last year. Trevor Chalobah hasn't had a look in. He might be going. You say likes of Gallagher, he might be going, and God knows who as well. But yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say about a midfield, because I wouldn't say that's our massive priority. I think we still need another centre back. As for the striker situation, well, that depends on outside circumstances outside of our control, and also depends on how Jackson comes back and how Nkunku comes back. So it's transfer wise, it's an odd situation to be in because there's spots we need aren't doing terribly, but where we need to be, like in the midfield, because someone to perform in, it's kind of confused. I just don't know how confident I'd feel bringing in someone to where we have the players, they just aren't performing. So maybe it's just a case of, and it's had the most chop and change for the whole entire season over the last year. We essentially bought a whole midfield last year, and they still technically under 3 managers haven't had the time to gel just yet. So adding in midfielders probably isn't the best idea. It might be a case of it might be a case of like, we just have to make room for them.
I guess on that note then, because obviously there's a lot of talk about what Ivan Toney might do next and where he might end up. Obviously there's lots of smoke around the Arsenal conversation, and one thing I do know for Arsenal is that whatever we do in January, financial fair play is really going to be a big consideration. So unless Brentford are going to be generous and give us like a structured payment plan or reduced price, that might be a very tough thing to do. Doable, but difficult. Is that a conversation you think Chelsea should be entering into? Would you look at bringing him in? Or if not him, who's your alternative striker?
There aren't many other options there apart from someone like, Osherman. But you'd have to pay bank for him. Raphael Leao is another one you'd have to pay bank for him.
Both of them is going to be 100 million plus.
Tops. Absolutely. I mean, even if you went for someone like, say, Ollie Watkins, you're still paying above value. I don't know if you're paying 100 odd for him, but if they charge 100 million for Jack Grealish, and who knows?
I think Watkins would be like between 65 to 80.
I was about to say that as well.
Yeah, I mean, and because they're performing right now, because they're on the right side of the table, that value's going to go even further.
And also for them, it's like, if you're going to let Watkins go, can you get another striker in that's going to get you the number of goals? I mean, wouldn't it be ironic if, let's play that out as a scenario, Aston Villa sell you Ollie Watkins, 65 million, go up and pick up Tony from Brentford for 60 million, and Tony fires them to second. Imagine that.
Can you imagine? It can happen.
Ironic, innit?
That would be crazy.
It can happen. Look, the strike again. But I wouldn't say go for a striker, because Nkunku is still technically untested, and we've only got proof of what he did in the preseason,
and the few games he plays,
and the few games he got his goal against Wolves. He got his goal before Hodgson did, which is bizarre. Besides the fact that he's been out for how many months, he's still an untested product. So if anything, he's still technically a brand new striker. We can't go off just of preseason alone. We need to see him in an actual run of games where he's starting effectively. I mean, this easy run of games he's missing is not really giving him too much. Give him more of a challenge. We got who we got at the end of the month? Liverpool at the end of the month, at the end of the window. We've got Arsenal coming up. We're gonna have Spurs coming up. We'll have City coming up. All these big games, and depending on how far we get in the FA Cup, or if we somehow get to the Carabao Cup final, we'll see him then as our new striker, and then come around to the summer, we'll see what we're working with, and also depends on where Tony is at that time.
If it's you, Craig, what do you do if you're part advising Todd Bowley? What do you do with that squad or with that front line?
Well, I'll look into it. I think, Chelsea need a striker. Definitely need a striker to score, because they're used to always having strikers that score a lot of goals for them in the past. At Hasselbank, he had Drogba,
Costa,
and a couple of bums.
Costa, and he had a couple of bums, yeah. Like Kesman, players like that. Shevchenko, Crespo. Well, Crespo did score goals for Chelsea though. He did win the league.
Not as many goals.
Not as many, but he did win the league with Chelsea. So you have to give him credit where it's due. He was a good player.
I'm naming those 3 players in particular: Kesman, Shevchenko, and Crespo. What they did in their previous clubs, they let us all down. Well, not us Arsenal fans. I'm happy that they both, but yeah, they let us all down.
I think the last best striker they had at Chelsea was Diego Costa. They never replaced him.
Yeah.
They never replaced him.
Best striker.
And that's why I think Chelsea kind of fell off after that. After they got rid of Costa, they sacked Conte and brought in Tuchel. Did well, won the Champions League for you guys, but he didn't really get. He had Werner, he had Havertz. Them guys are not getting 20 goals a season. Sorry, they never hit the target. They never hit that number of goals. So
the last striker to get anything near that was actually Tammy Abraham.
He was a good player.
And you let him go. Where did you say?
And we let him go. And he went and won the Conference League. First time of asking.
But I do feel that Chelsea need a striker who can score 25 goals. That can get them up the table. Tony would be a good shout. Osimhen would be a good shout. But I thought Ollie Watkins would be a good shout as well. But the thing is, would you want to leave Aston Villa though? Because Aston Villa's higher up the table than Chelsea and are doing better than Chelsea. Let's be honest.
Bad longevity. Longevity.
But I guess the big question with that is, okay, yeah, you're right. In terms of position-wise, Chelsea are higher up than... No, sorry, Aston Villa are higher up than Chelsea.
Yeah.
But you also got to think trajectory-wise, are Aston Villa going to be able to maintain this in years to come? So sometimes for a player, you might make that move to a traditional big-name club because it's actually, but this is a big club.
Yeah.
And I think they'll be able to do this more consistently as opposed to the club I'm currently at. So it's a conversation for him to have with his agents and his people.
Yeah.
Whether he makes that move or not, we'll see. But... yeah, that's been an interesting FA Cup weekend for Chelsea. Lots of little problems for you to figure out. We'll shift over to the Emirates. It was a very interesting game to look back on. I think the 2-0 defeat to Liverpool. Fair play to Liverpool. And there's lots of questions that will come out of that. The Arsenal fan base have been in a bit of a mini meltdown. Okay, we've lost 3 games in a row for the first time in 2 years, which in and of itself says a lot. On the one, it shows how far we've come. But at the same time, it shows how much farther we still have to go. And you have to measure both of those. And it also does bring up questions about the manager. But I just want to start with you, Craig, on that game against Liverpool. Now the dust has kind of settled a little bit.
Yeah.
We've had some time to cool down.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the team's performance? Team first, and then we'll get into the coach.
Well, first off, we could have scored 10 goals. 10, 11 goals. Like me playing FIFA at home, I could have scored 10, 11 goals for the chance we missed. We missed some shocking chances. We opened up Liverpool like they were not even... It's like watching a training game, attack versus defence. Nelson could have scored after a brilliant pass from Ramsdale. That's how Ramsdale didn't go. Ramsdale can do that and got that good distribution. We'll talk about it the other week, innit?
Yeah.
How he can get the ball, ping it out long. Nelson was through one on the keeper. What I would have done in that situation, I would have lifted it over the keeper. It was already on the ground anyway. Lifted it over him. He took the touch, tried to go around him. The keeper narrowed the angle, hit the side netting. I don't understand for the life of me how Kai Havertz didn't score 2 or 3 goals yesterday. The guy had the open goal, put the ball in the back of the net. He wants to take an extra touched it so wide, he took the angle away from the goal and he couldn't score. Odegaard should have scored his chance to hit the crossbar, unlucky. But Mr. Bukayo Saka, he should have scored. He missed some sitters there yesterday as well. I don't want to be too harsh on the team because I would say that the players look very tired. I really think the last couple of weeks they look very leggy. And I think players like Saka should have been taken off instead of Reece Nelson. Reece Nelson was playing very well. And I thought that when we took off Reece Nelson, we didn't look... There's no way we're going to score anyway. Liverpool changed their game plan at half-time. They brought on Jota, our nemesis. Every time Jota plays against Arsenal, he average scores or it does impact in that game. So they brought on Jota. They put Darwin Núñez on the left. He's another one. He wasted a lot of chances yesterday. He could have bagged himself a hat-trick if he wanted to. They changed it around. I think it was in the 85th minute they scored, wasn't it? 80th minute they scored, yeah. 80th minute they scored. Free kick from Trent. Ramsdale came out. If he stayed on this line, maybe he would have saved it. Kivior hit the back of his head and went in the back of the net. At that time, I thought, we could try and get equaliser. Liverpool would have put in pressure on us to score the second goal. They got the second goal in the end, and they cut Diaz with a good finish right on the top of Warner. And then that was it, game over. Well, my reflection is that if we play well like that in the first half against teams in the second half of the season, and we can put the ball in the back of the net, we'll definitely win more matches than we'll lose in the second half of the season. I don't know why we've gone so backwards in our finishing this season. Last season, if we had that same game last season against Liverpool again, we played yesterday, we would have battered Liverpool in that game. If it was the same team we had last season, X out maybe Xhaka, we would have won that game. Definitely would have won that game yesterday with the finishes that would have. Last season, Odegaard would have finished that chance. Saka would have finished his chance. Nelson would have finished his chance. So yeah.
I guess there's a lot of things to talk about in it. Lots of chances. Like I mentioned last week, the phrase from the podcast. So they have 2 phrases on the podcast. Obviously in England we say you got to finish your dinner. Over there on that football show, which is called Destroy, and they do like NFL routes 1v1, and they say you got to eat your breakfast. It's the first meal of the day. You got to eat your breakfast, and we say you got to finish your dinner. But I think when you looking back on that game, Matthew, and some of the, because again, like I said, there's been a lot of a weird reactionary response from the fan base about this result. Some fans have been losing their heads. Some of your AFTV lot need to get a bloody grip. Like it's not every day make yourself a star. But the reaction to me, I think, is it's a bit too polarizing. It's too far to the extremes. Those who are, you can't attack the manager for mistakes made, are too defensive, and those that are really critical of the manager are probably a bit too far down the other side. And I think there's a very measured middle position to take. And so with that being said, like we said about the chance of Reece Nelson from Ramsdale's pass, and we mentioned it in the last podcast, that's one element of Arsenal's play this season I think has been missing since we got in right. And we knew that from Ramsdale's podcast that he did, one of the newest podcasts that he's done over the last few months, that he had a conversation with the coaching staff about his style of play and wanting to not feeling as confident building up from the front the way the manager wants. So he wanted to try and play a bit longer, and the manager agreed that's fine, you know, and the coaching staff said, okay, that's okay, we can play longer passes. And as a result, it kind of helped our team last season. Obviously, they want something different this year, a more controlled approach. But that chance that he made for Reece Nelson, I can think of so many games last year when he did a similar pass out.
And it's buried.
And it created a moment. Whether a goal came or not, it didn't matter. He just created separation. He would get the ball to Martinelli, to Saka, to Jesus, who's space to run into. And we don't do that so much this year. But just talking about that, and in terms of the coach and the build-up play, like, how important do you think it is that, on the one hand, Arsenal are creating chances, which is good, but at the same time, we're not able to eat our breakfast and finish our bloody dinner?
You're doing all the hard work. You're doing all the hard work. It's just finally getting that correct answer on how you do it. It's just, I don't know, it's like you're making it more complicated like it needs to be. Like that Reece Nelson goal on any other, if he did that in training today, it's going in the back of the net. On that occasion, I think he just lost his head. It almost feels like he didn't expect to get that far as he did to get past Alisson, and then the goal was just wide open. Just simply give it enough force and just tap it in, and then boom, the trajectory of the game just changes. But I was talking to another Arsenal fan. He chalks it down to the fact that the mentality-wise in front of goal has just changed, because your two front guys just ain't doing it. I know how to take of Eddie Nketiah playing as Rashford is this season. I was right. He is doing it. He's having a poor season, but emulating it to the fact that he can get to the level that Rashford can. And I still think that he can. I just question if it's going to be with this team and maybe not with someone else. You know,
Eddie.
Yeah. Like, can he? Is he capable? Yes. Is he giving you guys enough to show that he's doing it? Absolutely not. It's not enough to get an odd hat trick against bottom of the table Sheffield. In games like that, you need it. You know, when they're relying on you. When Jesus is out, you are the main man. So, you know, you've got to try producing a little bit more. I mean, this is a different team from last year. You're definitely going for the league, Champions League as well. So there's got to be a little bit more going on. But he also thinks that you guys have been figured out a little bit, because maybe this more efficient approach is a bit too predictable in a way, and it's easier to play it, and it makes it, you know, a little bit more predictable and easy to play around. But that doesn't talk about your as you would say, and that is what Declan Rice said. He brought it out. And now Declan Rice, as we said before, is recognised as a leader. He was a captain of his last club. So if anyone's going to realise this, it's him. And you've already seen him have words with players around on the pitch about what they're doing and be like, this ain't working. Like, you know, come do what we got to do. This is our system that we have. Let's go. Come on, like, you know, let's get it right. You've only been doing it for one season, but barely one season. And a team like City, which I guess is what you're going for, have been doing it for years and years on end. That's why they're able to go for a barren run and still only be, a few points behind off the top. They're still firmly in the FA Cup. They're still in the Champions League, still in the hunt for the Premier League. So for whatever we might say about them, we might get it wrong. They know what they can fall back onto. You guys are trying this different approach, of which I understand and of which I get. And I don't get the panic of where you are right now, because one good result and it turns it all the way back. You know what I mean? No, it only takes one good result, and you know you're back to where you want to be. You know, so there is no want or need to panic now, guys. You know, this only goes to the fans that go, overly dramatic. But at the same time, you should be answering questions of the managers like, why aren't our players finishing their breakfast and their dinner? Why are we so predictable to play against? Why are we not looking around at other options if we want to get that striker? I'm not saying any names. To get that striker, get us over the line and lift up that trophy after 20 years. Whereas even if you're not thinking of getting him, who else are you thinking of getting? Like, why are all these questions? And slowly but surely, and what's happening with Martinelli and Saka? What's happened with them? Last year you couldn't look around, they couldn't get a goal. You couldn't blink and they didn't get a goal. Every other time. Now I don't know how many goals I have between them, but it's nowhere near as much as last year. I don't know. I mean, it might be a time of change. Like you said yesterday, how you blown them away with all these chances. It's almost stuff that was the Arsenal of the old from last year. Another day, those chances going ahead, Liverpool would have no reason to try and even show up.
Yeah.
So it's a hard one. It's not a hard one really. It's not a hard one really. No, it's just a case of are going to be with better players in your team, different players but better players. Just rinse and repeat and do last year. You got the players that can do it. Most of the players that were blowing teams away were there last year. So, maybe it might be change it up a little bit, switch it up, be less predictable, be a bit more open and expansive. You're not like Leeds where you're shipping goals every single time. You're not with likes of William Saliba at the back and Gabriel. You're gonna be fine on that end. Plus, you've got two starter keepers in Raya and Ramsdale. So, if you want to win this league, you got to show that you're not just a one-trick pony. And have teams figure you out, like likes of Fulham and West Ham, and eventually down Liverpool figuring you out. You got to be finishing the whole plate's got to be checked, man. You got to eat the whole plate.
We definitely need to be eating the whole plate. I do want to pick up on one thing. There's quite a few things you said that we're going to get into a bit more, but I want to start off with the one that I think, I want to ask both of you this. I think it's probably like a big debate because there's been an offer on the table, alleged offer on the table, from Crystal Palace for Eddie Nketiah. They're allegedly hovering around looking at a potential deal for him. And I remember last year, after the Man United game, when one of our podcast was titled "Nketiah's in the room," and it was obviously that song that came out on TikTok, and everyone was really hyped up about it. Your defense is in trouble, and Nketiah's in the room. We ain't singing that so much this season. But for you, Matthew, what do you think when you look at Nketiah now in the performances this year? Even including the hat-trick he scored against Sheffield United. What do you think is different about the way he's playing? Because you said he could potentially reach that Rashford-like level, even though for Marcus Rashford, my bro, you need to rise it to the next level because Mbappe's right there. That's the guy we think you can... Well, Man United fans thought you were pals with, but actually you're not even in his... But that's a level for you to aspire to. What do you think's missing from Nketiah's game this season that he had last year?
It's like he's not floating on air like he was last year. Last year he was flirting on air. It was a whole new wave of belief in the team where no one expected them to do what they did. It was just completely unpredictable, and they kind of went along with it. It's almost as if you had a training session, and whatever they did on the pitch in the game did something completely different. Like let's go on plan. Let's go off script. Maybe he's one of those players. Maybe he's one of those unique players where it's just like, you just make sure you need to be where you are. Be where I want you to be. Be that fox in the box kind of guy and get those goals. And sometimes you just rise off that wave of confidence and he tucks it in. Sometimes the best strikers do that. It's just a case of being in placement. Look at someone like Jermaine Defoe. Jermaine Defoe was the king of placement, right place, right time. Even if it was being 4 inches from the goal, he would find a way to kind of just be there, just playing just so freely. I watched some of his goals. They did the thing today on Sky Sports, one of his goals, where it was just so much diverse way he's scoring goals. And I think that's because we said before that he has a way of playing that he likes to play. The best strikers, the ones that go ahead and get 15 plus challenge into Premier Leagues, can get out of their comfort zone a little bit. And even some of the more established pros, that's what happened with Lukaku was. He got used to one way of playing for this Chelsea system. He wasn't happy with it. And it was a case of, they're not feeding me, but what are you doing to help us feed you? What are you doing? And the best strikers, your Haalands, your Kanes, your Tonys, And even someone like, like your Watkinses eventually find a way to get themselves in the mix, in the goal, around the area, whether they're coming in from, whether they're running in, being in the box, positionally aware or something, just riding on that array of confidence, they find themselves in that right place at the right time. And maybe he's more like Rashford than we think. Maybe he's just playing off a thing of confidence because he's scoring. He's just not scoring enough for you to be pushing for a title. And I just think that, I don't know, you guys this year are much more fun. No. You're much more efficient. You're much more organised. And you're way more, I'm going to say, what's the word I'm looking for?
We're functional.
Functional.
We're not pretty.
You're a Porsche. You're a Porsche. You're functional. You're efficient. You ain't pretty. Last year, you was a Ferrari. You're unpredictable. Maybe waving your hands around, but it was fun. And maybe he's a kind of vibesy player. No, because he goes through spells where he has like the odd good moment, like the year where he came to Stamford Bridge and had us for breakfast. Then last year where he had was kind of spread over. Maybe he had his one moment against Sheffield United. We just don't know, but he clearly thrives off being that chaotic kind of unorganized player. And maybe the system you got just doesn't suit him. It definitely doesn't suit Jesus either, which makes matters worse. So if Crystal Palace came and knock in, I mean, they're a vibesy team.
They are a vibesy team.
They are vibesy.
They're vibes of FC.
They are vibe. They got that South London energy to a T, and they're fun. They're fun to watch. They are fun to watch. So if I'm Eddie, I'm like, do you cut the losses do you test the waters with a loan for a few and then hope if Tony's still around? I don't know. But I feel like if in the case for this team right now, if they're trying to go to the Premier League, this almost feels like it's one of his last chances. Because he's been at the club long enough.
Yeah, it's a very difficult one because at the end of the day, he's still a young striker. And I remember Jermaine Defoe said it on, I think it was on the Filthy Fellas podcast, that actually he rates Nketiah very highly, which surprised a lot of the panelists. He's like, no, I rate him very highly because he sees a lot of, and actually one of the other panelists was saying, I think it might have been Tigo was saying, that he can see elements of Defoe in Nketiah's game. Yeah. I stress the word elements. Don't come for me. But for you, Craig, when you think about it, and I know it's really hard because I always say when you think about our strikers of old, but let's think about our strikers of old, but for the more recent history. So let's leave the legends out of the conversation. So we're talking about from Giroud onwards. Shade. He's no legend. You know what I mean? So we're talking about from Giroud onwards, what do you think about Nketiah in relation to that in terms of those strikers we've had in the more recent times? And what do you think is going wrong with his game? Or what's not clicking this year compared to last?
Players trusting him. The players don't trust him on the pitch. I can see that every time I say to him, we watch the game together, I'm saying, look, Nketiah made a good run. Odegaard, slot him through. Rice, slot him through. Saka, slot him through. Havertz, slot him through. Trossard, slot him through. They don't pass the ball to him. It's the same problem that Man United have with Hodgland. They don't pass the ball to him. How's he going to score? So if I'm Nketiah, I'm playing football, I'm not getting the ball. I'm going to get frustrated. He needs the ball. But if one thing in Nketiah's game that he needs to improve on is his hold-up play. Holding up the ball. When they get the ball, hold it up. Try and score from outside. I know he's an in-the-box striker, but try and hit the ball early. Test the keeper early. That's what when I play football as a striker, when I used to play as a striker, my manager always says to me in training, hit the ball early, test him, because the keeper's not going to go down that early. Hit him early, you'll score early. Don't always have to be doing all the intricate pass. That's the problem with Arsenal as well, not just him, with all of our players. We don't shoot, we don't take shots.
That's most teams though, isn't it?
We don't take shots. If you look at the Premier League over the years, back in the day, in 2000, from 2001 to 2000 to 2008
or 9.
Or 9, for example, teams were taking shots outside the box. How many games do you see players score goals from outside the box nowadays? Everything is inside the box. That's why I think football's kind of lost its essence of great entertainment. Football's still entertaining to watch, but I thought football could be even more entertaining if players gambled more. I know they have the tactics and all that stuff, but if I'm a player playing on a pitch and I see the ball opens up for me to take a shot, please believe I'm taking a shot. I'm not passing the ball to you inside the box to score. I'm taking a shot. Most likely we'll hit the post and you get a tap in, or whatever. But you have to gamble. And I think with Arsenal strikers, we don't gamble enough. Like 1 week, Saka gets the ball, plays the ball inside the box, no Jesus. Nketiah, Martinelli have the ball, dribble, play it inside the box, no one to gamble. We haven't got a poacher in the box like an Ian Wright. If Ian Wright is playing Arsenal's team right now, he will score over 200-300 goals. And that's a fact. That's not me trying to be hypothetically or be silly or be gas or anything. If Ian Wright was playing Arsenal's team today and the chances that we create, he would bag in the hat-tricks every week. We create so many chances. Like yesterday, if Ian Wright was playing yesterday, he would have had 11 goals. The amount of chances we missed. And I feel that that's when maybe Nketiah needs to watch Ian Wright's videos. That's an advice to you. Watch his videos and watch how he finishes and watch his movement and how he gets goals. Ian Wright and Nketiah are like the same kind of frame. They're not big guys. But Ian Wright was a menace on the pitch. Absolute menace. He used to wind up opposition players. He used to do everything to get on players' skin. And he was able to do things. Look at the goals he scored. I remember one goal he scored against Everton when he chipped the keeper. When there's one he flipped the ball over the guy's head, flipped over the other guy's head, and some of the goals he used to score was amazing. He used to do dink shots. He could do slot the ball in the back of the net. He could score any type of goal. If Eddie Nketiah wants to be a top player for Arsenal Football Club, he needs to learn to be an elite player. You can't be saying, oh, he's got potential. How old is he now? He's 24 years old, almost 25. You can't be saying he's going to have potential. For how much longer can you say potential? It will come a stage here when if Arsenal are a big club, as we said we're a massive club, we need guys to be scoring 25 to 30 goals a season. Not just Nketiah, Jesus as well. Because all good us getting on to Nketiah, but Jesus is the main man. He's an international footballer. He should be leading by example and scoring all the goals for the club when he plays in matches. And then if Arsenal 4-5 up at half time or in second half, you can take off Jesus and bring on Nketiah to get a goal. Or some games, if Jesus is injured, like how he's injured now, you can rotate it and put Nketiah in, and Nketiah can get a goal or two, get his confidence up. But we can't be a charity FC anymore and thinking, oh, we have to play Nketiah every game, he's not scoring. We need to be ruthless. If he's not scoring goals and it's not happening for him, I'm sorry, we're going to have to be ruthless and say, you know what, we're going to have to sell you. We're sorry, we believe in you as a player, but we need to get to the next level. The next level is win the Premier League, Champions League, FA Cup, or any trophy. We can't be on this, let's be loyal to this player, that player. That was one of Arsene Wenger's biggest downfalls in the end. That's what ended up costing him his job. He was too loyal to players and players let him down every single time. Every single time they let him down. He was not ruthless enough towards the end of his career to say, you know what, this is not working. Or maybe he wasn't backed either, but that's another story for another day. But I still think that he had a great start at Arsenal, and then when we moved to the Emirates, that's when things just went kind of left. After we left Highbury, the Emirates era, we struggled for years. Every season we sold our best player, struggle. Still getting top four, still getting Champions League, but we weren't winning trophies. It took Wenger until 2014 to win a trophy. And I thought that one of the regrets I have with that is that I wish we could have bought more players to support the players like a Sanchez, Ozil. If we had a decent striker like an Aubameyang came in before the Giroud times, we would have won the league. The season when Leicester won the league, we could have won the league that season. Yeah. If we had a decent striker that season, when Drew stopped scoring. So, yeah.
I think that's a big thing, and we know it's an area that needs to be addressed soon, because like you look at the numbers for the front players in particular. Odegaard hasn't quite hit the heights of last season, goals and assists. Saka's doing okay numbers wise. He's in line with what he was doing last season. I know fans are upset about some of his performances, but actually his numbers are actually still in line with last season, so he's actually doing okay. Martinelli is well off last season's numbers, and Jesus is just not enough. You're right. It's not just Nketiah. It's Jesus is not enough. And Havertz, ironically, there was an interview that came out, or some quotes from Arteta before the Liverpool game, pre-match quotes, and it was asking him about, looking at the team's evolution from last season to this season, and and they were talking about the form of the front players. What was his thoughts on how Arsenal were going to perform this year? And he said that I didn't expect the front two to maintain their Martinelli and Saka. I didn't expect them to maintain their goal scoring numbers from last year going into this season. So we have to kind of think of other ways to get goals. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I went to get Kai Havertz, even though a lot of fans don't necessarily didn't want him, didn't rate him. And I think they looked at the goals that Xhaka got last year and thought, okay, well, Kai Havertz can chip in with an extra 10-ish goals this year. And it hasn't happened so far. There's still time, but it hasn't happened so far. And I think therein lies one of the issues, is that it hasn't materialised with Havertz in the goal. The likes of Trossard and others haven't really kicked on with more goals that we would need. And so right now we've got a deficit in that our main striker, Jesus, isn't playing the same way as last year. He's not moving with the same level of like aggression and intensity. And I know he's come back with another injury to his, I think another knee injury again. So hopefully that's not a major one. But I'm thinking back to last year and how he used to body defenders, like I mentioned on the podcast last week, and how he used to kind of set the play and move and wriggle and dribble and still be in position to shoot. Now it's like you said, he was playing more like a winger in the midfield and not like a striker. And so with all of that, the questions then do come to the manager, because it does feel like the Arsene days of playing with the handbrake on. But rather than it being the handbrake, it's like we're trying to do death by 1,000 cuts, but we don't have anyone to stick the ball in the back of the net. So we're just cutting at you with a blunt, with a blunt knife, and it's getting there, it's chipping away, but it's not effective and it's not really having the outcome that we really want. And I guess for you, Matthew, when you look at it and you think about Arsenal last season versus this season, do you think the manager? And again, I want to caveat this because I think it's very easy to be overreactionary and say that Arsenal how we're playing isn't good, it's not effective. But actually, we dominate most of the games we play in. It's just that our finishing has let us down in the last 3 games. I mean, our finishing has been bad this whole season, and the numbers don't lie. We have an issue with our finishing in general, and our chance creation has been down a lot. But what do you think Arteta needs to do differently now to address these issues that have been glaringly obvious since August with the team?
I think one big thing he needs to do, and one thing that fans come out and talk about your star boy Saka, he needs to not play him in every single game. There are certain games that are coming out this season, play mainly in the Champions League, maybe the couple in the Carabao Cup, granted you play in certain teams. He doesn't need to play every single second of every single game. Why? Because yes, we could talk about his age. He's getting hacked left, right and centre, and that's never a good thing for a player's longevity. Should he stay at Arsenal for the rest of his career or move on to other pastures, he's going to want something from that, And also the fact that, even though it's got nothing to do with it and, it's not really a fan's problem, we do have a Euros coming up, but he's going to want to be in that fold, He's been one of England's better players for the past 3 or 4 years. And, he's going to want to be there. The last Euros, we got that close into the final, but we're runners up. He wants revenge. He's going to want revenge for that. He's still at an age where he's going to be part of the England fold for years to come, and with the potential he has, he's one where he should be bringing home trophies more than just an FA Cup. He deserves more. As a player, like he said, he is your star boy, and part of being that star boy is that you got to cherish him. You got to, sometimes he will need that cotton wool treatment. And for a team that's going for the trophies that you want to go for, you were fingertips away from it last year, and with a better team this year, you think you'll be a little bit closer. You'd think you'd have someone there to like deputise for him, like play in his place, where he doesn't have to play every single game, and. I think this has always been a criticism of Arteta, is that his player management sometimes in games and not overplaying certain players has always been a little bit of an issue. A lot of guys don't get a look in. Emile Smith-Rowe barely gets a look in. And we all know how good a player he can be. Wasn't he part of didn't he go to the tournament where they did
on the 21s and they won in the
and then he won.
Yeah.
And he was there. You've still got the likes of Reece Nelson. He comes back showing his faith to the team. The likes of Trossard. You got the likes of you got players that can deputise for him. I just think that it places a lot on a guy's shoulders who's not even your captain, where he feels like he needs to play every single game because apparently that's what the board might want. But that's when you're, like I said before, when you're that close to playing, to be aiming for all these trophies, you need to be a bit more, that approach, that careful, methodical approach you have on the pitch, have it with your players. He's clearly not in the best form right now. So give him a rest. You got a very demanding schedule. Champions League and Europa League are 2 different creatures to play. Plus, you got Champions League, you still got Premier League. There's international qualifiers. That's more game time. So I think one of the things you've got to do is manage his players mainly with him. is to just not play him every single game. He doesn't need to. He doesn't, he doesn't need to be doing that. And just kind of like, figure out what this whole goal scoring problem is. Like, what's the drought, It's a time to be methodical, but there are times where you need to blow teams away. Gareth Southgate has the same problem, where you play some of these teams, we have all the shots, but you find yourself beating Malta like 2-1 or 2-0. For the talent that you have on that pitch, that's just not good enough. And you're coming up against the likes of Klopp and Pep, who've been here before many, many times with teams that know how to score. You've now got to add an Aston Villa as well into that frame. You're not going to have it. It's a drastically different season from what it was last year, where for the most part you had it all your own way and they were playing catch up. Man City were playing catch up, and Liverpool were nowhere near what they are now. The game's changed. Liverpool have figured themselves out quietly under the radar, doing what they got to do. City got their king back. King De Bruyne is back, and who sees how long Aston Villa can hold this whole crazy form up? It's going to dip at some point. It won't last forever, but they're going to try. They'll be there for the longest time. I can see them there to about maybe end of February, March time. You never know. But he's got to get like the guys firing. You see, if you get the guys firing, or you get someone that can, because for all the domination you have, you just need that final. It's like you just need that final piece of the cannon who's just gonna as in Gunner's saying, who's just gonna get that ball in the back of the net. That's the missing piece. Find someone who can finish.
I think the finishing is definitely a big issue. And I mean, I guess like I said before, I think our chance creation as well has been a problem throughout this season. I think the Fulham game at home, the Fulham game away, West Ham at home, where we played really well but couldn't score. Fulham away, we played terribly and deserved to lose. Liverpool, again, we kind of got back to creating lots of chances but just couldn't finish our dinner. So there's work to be done. Sometimes it's difficult for a coach because it's almost like, on the one hand, how much more could you do as a coach? Like they've made all these chances, you just didn't finish it. At the same time, if he utilised the squad better, maybe then, when Saka was playing really poorly in that match, could have taken him off. It was a surprise seeing Nelson come off because he did lots of good stuff, but at the same time, he also couldn't finish his dinner. So there's definitely lots of question marks about the squad composition. There's definitely question marks about what we do for our chance creation. There's question marks about the manager's utilisation of the squad, and I think that's been a question that's been there since the day one of Arteta's reign at Arsenal that needs to be addressed and fast, and we keep saying it. I like the fact that we switched to double pivot against Liverpool, and it did make us control the game a lot more and create a lot more chances. The question now is that the move going forward? There's been rumours today about a potential bid for Andre Onana coming in to get him in from Everton. He's a midfielder, so clearly they're looking at doing some work in the market. I know it's going to be tricky. We want a striker as fans. We want a winger. We also want a centre mid, and we also might need defensive reinforcement. So you're looking at 4 positions that we might as fans want. Whether the club decide that's the 4 what they're going to do, I don't know if they can. There's work to be done, and we've got to figure it out and fast, because this season, and like looking at the Premier League table, we are in 4th, but we're on 40 points. Liverpool are top on 45. It's not insurmountable. That could change in 3 match weeks.
And our rivals Tottenham are 1 point behind us.
Yeah, and Tiny Tots are behind us by 1 point. So there's a lot that can happen, and West Ham are behind them, 5 points behind them. So there's a lot that can happen between now and, by the time we get to game week 25, like right now it's 20 games played and that's where we're at. So in 5 games time, that table could look a lot different. And I think it's important for Arsenal to still be in touching distance come March.
Would you sell, I know in January we've got to sell some players to buy. Would you sacrifice a player like Kivior? Would you sell him?
I think with Kivior, the issue is he hasn't played enough minutes. So that's why he looks very shaky. But I don't think he's a terrible player. It's just he hasn't played enough. So it's very hard to gauge what his level is. I think the mistake is that there's games when you probably should have played alongside Saliba in the middle as centre-back and not at left-back. So with him, it's a tough one. I don't necessarily think I would, because if you sell him, then the outlay you're going to have to buy to get a replacement, that's money that you would probably want to spend elsewhere in the squad. Okay. So I'd probably keep the defensive options as they are. Maybe look to try and bring someone in. And they're looking at a couple of different options. There's a guy from
Sporting Lisbon in Nassau.
Yeah. So that could be an option. There's one player from the Turkish league as well they've rumoured to be talking to. So we'll see. It's the midfield and striking options that I'm more curious about, because this Eddie Nketiah news, there's no smoke without fire. So clearly, the club's won him. The club have said no so far. I think we have a price that we would sell for, which I think would be 40 plus million, might get the club to move him on. And if we do move him on, then I would expect us to make a big move. At the end of the day, I don't think our players have forgotten how to finish from last season. And so maybe it might require us to loosen up the shackles a little bit in how we play. And maybe if we do go back to a double pivot, it's a big change from our new formation of having a single pivot and the 2 8s. But if we go back to double pivot and have Odegaard in the 10, maybe even some matches you might then start Smith Rowe in the 10, that might help create more options. But I think we need to try things a little bit differently. And if we do get Onana in, which seems possible, I think that means one of two things. Could mean Partey's getting moved on. It also might mean he's not coming back for months. I know he's travelled the squad to Dubai, so is Dewey and Timber, which is good for the preseason, little warm weather training camp. But then it could also mean that Arteta is thinking, let's go to double pivot. And then there'll be some games will be Rice Onana, some games might be Rice and Jorginho, some games it might even be Odegaard and Rice deeper. Then you can have a Smith Rowe on the pitch ahead of them. So there's options we could do. Or we might have some games we go for a good old-fashioned 4-4-2. And you have Nketiah and Jesus up there together when they're both fit. Or you might go for Havertz and Nketiah like we did back in the game. So there's things we could try. And I'm very curious to see what he wants to do going forward. Just to wrap things up, obviously there's been big news coming out in Africa, Cup of Nations, and finally we've got a broadcaster. So it's been a lot of confusion with African Cup of Nations this year because there's been no broadcaster was announced for a long, long time. For weeks and months, they've been waiting to see who's going to get the coverage. It's now been announced that Sky Sports are going to have the coverage for the Cup of Nations, which is amazing news. For me, it's a week to go. It's embarrassing. And to be honest, I think that the CAF, so the African Federation, needs to really have a long look at themselves for next tournament and get this sorted out, because it's beyond ridiculous that a week to go to the tournament with just
a big tournament,
massive tournament, you're just securing TV rights. Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And I think they need to have a long look at themselves, the product and the value. That being said, we also had the news of Franz Beckenbauer's passing as well, a legend of German football and of world football, a player that will easily go down as one of the top 10 defenders of all time, easily in the conversation for one of the top 10, maybe top 20 footballers of all time. You can debate that how you want, but he's definitely in there. Defenders-wise, I think he's definitely top 5, and he's not 5. So he's up there. And a player that I know would be a massive miss, not just for German football, also Bayern Munich, because he was heavily involved there as one of their senior leadership and team of directors. And of course, there's players that want to come back. So let's talk about Mr. Jordan Henderson. There's been a lot of talk about, or rumours about players from the Saudi League that are looking to come back to Europe. I've heard rumours about, whether they're all true, I don't know. Mahrez apparently wants to move back. I also heard potentially Benzema wants to move back to Europe, but I don't know how true that is. Obviously, Henderson wants out. What's your take on that, Craig? And where would you think he could potentially go? Liverpool have already said no.
There's a saying in life, yeah, that having a lot of money doesn't make you happy. He went for the money. Let's be real. He didn't go for the footballing project. He went for the money.
Of course, they all did.
All of them went for a big payday. Oh, this is the end of my career. I'm going to go for a big payday before I retire. I'm not knocking it. But if he went for purely footballing reasons, I could understand. But he went for the money. So if clubs are going to try and buy you now, they're going to end up have to pay a lot of money on your wages you're on. You're going to have to take a massive reduction in wages to come to another club. If I'm in Jordan Henderson's situation right now, I know Liverpool are going to say, no, they don't need him. They've got a good midfield. They don't need him anymore. And he looked leggy in their team last year, to be fair. Wasn't really doing it for them. I could see him, he wouldn't go to Newcastle because the rivalry with Sunderland. They need a midfielder. And he's a big Sunderland fan. Go back to Sunderland. Or go back to Luton, or go to maybe a Wolves, or maybe a West Ham. Maybe West Ham need a midfielder.
Sunderland's a shout because they're on the right side of the Championship.
Sunderland doing quite well. They just need that extra push. They were very unlucky last season to get promoted. They could have got promoted last season. So you go to Sunderland, get them promoted to the Premier League, you'll be a hero. So you maybe go back home and do what you need to do. The Mahrez thing as well. Mahrez was very good at City. he was top quality at City. Him and Sterling, when they were together, were pushing each other every week to play. If he wants to come back, he'll get a team in the Premier League. Newcastle need wingers. Go to Newcastle. They're owned by Saudi owners. Go to a Newcastle. Benzema, Man United need a striker. They're crying for a striker. Go to Man United, Benzema. United could afford his wages.
Well, that would be a move, you know.
Benzema to Man United, why not?
And they're the kind of club that'll do that sort of thing.
And he's a winner. The guy's won so many Champions League, I can't even count them. And not only that, he'll get Rashford back in form as well.
Playing alongside playing alongside a guy who knows about redemption, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
A bit like when they brought in Cristiano Ronaldo a couple of seasons ago. He could be that Eric Cantona kind of player, the leader. He's won everything in football, needs to in club football. He could help players like Garnacho. He could help players like Hodgson, could learn from him. And if they're anything, they'd just ship out a Martial. I'm not being horrible, but he's out of contract in the season. If you want to get a last payday out of him, or let's get something for the money you paid for him, sell him and bring in Benzema. I'm not a Man United fan, but just an advice, just to help you get up the table. Yeah,
It's not
go
impossible.
for Benzema.
It's not impossible.
Or don't take the advice on board and keep doing exactly what you're doing. You're doing great. You're doing great. You're doing amazing.
We love to see it.
We love it.
Love to see it, mate. Love to see it.
We love it till we beat them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be an interesting time once the league restarts. Obviously, the players have got a week off to now fine-tune, rest, do some warm weather training for most clubs. I think some clubs are staying home because they think it's better. Arsenal, I know, have gone off to Dubai. Like I said, Partey and Timber have both travelled, so that's good news. Edu's going to be very busy. He did win Sports Director of the Year a few months ago, which some fans are very confused about. But hey, you know what? You got that award, earn it.
Yes, earn it. Earn it.
You know, you got some work to do. And Mikel, like I said, I do think it's right to have questions about things that we've seen consistently. One last thing, I'm saying that a lot, but this actually generally is the last thing, then we've got to wrap up. There was a post put on Instagram, whether it's, which I think is some of Mario Hutchinson's brother. Mario Hutchinson was an Arsenal youth team player. He went to Chelsea. He's now on loan at Ipswich. Barely plays, but that's besides the point. I just want to say that for context. But he was saying how you look at this past weekend of matches in the FA Cup, and Liverpool gave debuts to some young players. Man City gave debuts to young players as well.
Yeah.
Chelsea, well, I mean, your squad is young, but you brought on some young players. A lot of these players got opportunities to break in, to get minutes, and Arsenal, again, no youngster touching the pitch. No Wanyeri, no Raw Waters. You know, none of these guys got an opportunity. So I'll start with you, Matthew, and I'll go to you, Craig. Do you think that Arteta's, maybe you could say refusal, but his reluctance to give these younger players a chance in matches where, and we talked about it in the last podcast, Craig, about the Champions League games when we were just thinking they got to get minutes somehow. Now we're out of all domestic cups. Do you think him not utilising them in this moment or throughout the season is a problem, especially when you think about the history and the culture at Arsenal?
It's going to be on a lot of fans' minds, especially as not just the culture of Arsenal of playing like a lot of youngsters in certain tournaments. There was a period not too long before this one where clubs were playing nothing but youngsters at a certain time. So doing a lot to promote from their youth and from their academy. So to kind of do a U-turn on that a little bit, I think will rub fans a real wrong way, especially in the position that you're in, where it's like it's a good time to implement into a team that's a strong team, the first strong team we've had in over a decade that's challenging for actually big trophies now. They're going to feel that culture and embed themselves into it. It's going to build them a whole world of confidence. You know, you look at the likes of Liverpool, like the likes of Curtis Jones, Joe Gomez and Trent. You know, they were implemented into the squad. Granted, it took them a few years to get to a Premier League, Champions League level, but they got there. You know, you look at the likes of, granted, it didn't work for us, but it started really well, didn't work for us. The likes of Tammy Abraham, Mason Mount, Fikayo Tomori. You know, Tomori moved on to go off to AC Milan and win trophies there, and Mount and Abraham won Champions League with us. Even City are doing it as well. They've introduced new likes of Rico Lewis. Phil Foden was one of theirs, wasn't he? Phil Foden, one of theirs. You know, these players eventually, you know, whether you like it or not, they're going to have to start playing at some point and showing some faith in them to get and give them that confidence. So it seems very bizarre. Saka, you're doing it with Saka, looking for where he was to where he is now. So clearly your academy is producing something good. And I know you're losing in an FA Cup tie, but just get them on the pitch, get them running, because you never know what they're going to be able to produce. They're an unknown entity. The only people who know what they're capable of is the club. So I know you're putting all this emphasis on have these, you know, like these big time plays winning, like your Rices, your Havertz, and so on and so forth, which granted, yes, you needed to do, but just make sure that you're not leaving behind what you were or what made you so good, you know, made you so big in the first place. You know, these players work so hard to get even like 10 minutes for a season. So you kind of owe them a little bit of time just to kind of embed, just see what they can do. Because if you don't do that, if clubs didn't do that, there's a whole wealth of talent just in England alone that's just not getting a chance. And it's such a shame. Such a shame.
What about you, Craig?
Okay, I'm going to start with a scenario. 2 seasons ago, I think it was, we had a young player called Charlie Patino. Came on against Sunderland, scored a goal. We won 6-0 against Sunderland in the League Cup, Carabao Cup. Season after that, loaned him out to Blackpool, and then he was going to leave the club, and then Arteta persuaded him to stay, so he signed a 1-year contract. So he's on loan at Swansea now, doing quite well up there. So the situation is, I think Arteta said that he wants to keep him at the club, but I think Patino's going to have to decide if he wants to stay or not end of the season. Wanyeri got a start last season against Brentford.
Came off the
bench against Brentford last season. Played well. Done well in the youth club. Lewis Skelly.
Miles Skelly, yeah.
Done well in the youth.
Lewis Skelly, sorry.
Done well in the youth. Mario
Cosby-Dewberry, yeah.
Done well in the youth. Not getting minutes. Raw Waters. Done well in the youth as well. Not getting minutes. I was saying to you last week that it's about time we start giving this younger player. Like Ben White has not been playing well recently. Has not been playing well at all. I would have taken off Ben White yesterday and given Raw Waters a chance. I know it's against Liverpool, but you have to be fearless and give these youngsters a chance. These youngsters are the guys that can win you trophies or they can save you from your job. A couple of seasons ago, let's rewind back, when Arteta first came to Arsenal, Smith Rowe was one that saved him from his job. Remember when Smith Rowe was banging in them goals? Scored against Chelsea, remember? Smith Rowe saved him from his job. Saved him spend a lot of money on players. I think Arteta's kind of gone backwards where he doesn't trust the youth, the young players at Arsenal. I was saying this to you last week, and I feel like these are the players that could save you millions in the transfer window. Give them minutes, give them experience. What's going to happen is you're going to end up losing them on free transfers, and then they're going to go to another club and do well. You don't want the same mistake like what Arsenal did with Gnabry. Gnabry did well somewhere else, got the move to Bayern Munich, and look what he's doing now, excelling. We don't want that same mistake to happen again, just because of the man just being stubborn and not want to give players a chance, young players a chance.
Vision of what he wants.
Yeah. Are you telling me someone like Wanyeri couldn't do a better job than what Havertz did yesterday? Come on in midfield.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely questions to be asked. And I'm actually surprised that it's not come up within the, you know, in the press conference, in terms of like questions put to him. Like, I'm surprised no journalist has asked him, like, you know, in these games, why have you not felt the need to introduce some younger players? Do you feel like it's opportunity missed? Or that? I'm surprised it's not come up. I mean, we can all speculate as to his reasons why and what he wants from the team in terms of like how he's picking the 11, those kind of things. But I'm just really surprised that it has not come up at all. That's the thing that I don't really understand.
Can I give an example? Yeah. When Arteta was assistant manager under Pep, no one gave him a chance. Only City gave him a chance to be assistant manager, and he had to learn from Pep. So the same way how he learned from Pep here, he should be doing it with the younger players. He had to learn somewhere. He didn't become a manager overnight. He had to learn the role like an apprentice. An apprentice had to learn to become an electrician or a builder or whatever. He didn't just become a builder overnight. He had to learn the training and everything, learn the training, all that stuff. So the same thing with Arteta. Arteta was trained, learned from Pep, learned all the tactics, how to do certain things, how to change tactics in matches and all that. So the same way how he was given the opportunity, he should be given the opportunity to younger players at Arsenal. They're all training with the first team. Obviously, they're going to learn from all the top players. So you're telling me if he's learning from the top players, you should give him a chance.
He recognises that because he went through the exact same thing.
That's what I'm saying. So him cutting his nose to spite his face is not good, because he should be giving the younger players a chance. Arsenal always, in their history, have always given young players a chance. Michael Thomas, who was at the game yesterday. Ian Wright was given a chance at Arsenal. Who else? David Rocastle, rest in peace. Tony Adams, Martin Keown. All these players were given a chance at Arsenal in the youth team were given a chance. Paul Merson were given a chance. So Arsenal always been heavily relying on giving young players a chance, youth players a chance. So I feel like we need to get back to that tradition again, because end of the day, if we end up losing all these good players to bigger clubs like Chelsea might want to steal them, Man City will want to steal them, Man United will steal them, Liverpool will steal them. It will happen.
Or if you go into a smaller club, he might establish himself there.
Yeah.
Go there, and even though he's not winning any trophies, he's getting time. And that's also a big problem you're going to have as well. So
definitely.
If you look at all the teams right now in the Premier League that have won all the plethora of trophies, like the big trophies, you look at the ones, that's Man City, that's Liverpool, and up until recently, that was Chelsea as well. Why? Because they had a good balance of pro, and we were forced our hand on playing our youngsters, but he did us good in the end. The best clubs have a good kind of balance, especially now where it's much more like, sustainability wise and impression wise, it looks good to play those younger players. It's they work so hard. Like I said, they deserve a chance at least. I'm not saying to give them like these bumper contracts straight away, but at least give them a chance. For public image and all like that.
Definitely.
Give them a chance.
Yeah, well, hopefully he will use this warm weather break to get a new perspective on things, because at the end of the day, this is Arsenal, we have a tradition, and I think he needs to remember that. And like you said, Craig, we don't want to lose these players. You don't want to lose these players. So I think it's important for him to step into that. And we'll see how it goes when we come back from that, when they come from winter break. Next week's episode, we're going to do something a little bit different. But thanks everyone for listening. So no more football from the Premier League. So Arsenal fans, you have a break. AFTV lot, please get a grip.
Chill out.
Relax. I know it's not great right now, but things will pick up. Some of you need to go outside and touch grass, or get caught in the snow if you're in the UK. It's okay. And we'll see you all next time.
Peace.
Peace.